You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marnie Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Marisa Peters and David Thau. How to kill cancer and beat disease.
Ladies, welcome back to another episode of Life Check Yourself. Today, we're going to actually be talking about something really important in regards to life checking yourself around your health. This is a really interesting topic because I feel like, especially as we're in middle age, there's sort of like two camps. There's the never mind, it's not happening to me. Let's just see if this thing goes away, doesn't bother me. Or I've talked to women too lately who are like, literally, my nose was bleeding and I went to urgent care. We get so consumed around our health, especially if you have cancer or major diseases in your genetic past. And so I've brought two experts here to help us kind of get the 411 on this. I have Marisa Peters and David Thau. You're going to love this conversation. David is a political consultant living in DC. That'll put some stress on your health right now. He was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in 2019. He was 34. He had 2 surgeries, 12 rounds of chemo. He's 5 years post-cancer with no evidence of the disease. And since then, he's been an advocate for raising funds and awareness for young-onset colorectal cancer treatments, research, and screening. He also serves on the Never Too Young board, which is such a beautiful thing, at the Colorectal Cancer Alliance. And he's been the leading fundraiser for the Jimmy Fund Walk for the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute each of the last 5 years. And they're going to tell you how they met because they said something about a colorectal cancer sandwich. So stay tuned for that. Marisa is here. She is an author, a producer, a public speaker, and a vocalist. As the founder of Be Seen, which is a media company, she is dedicated to amplifying women's health initiatives, self-care, and well-being with a focus on raising awareness around young onset cancers. She is also a stage 3 rectal cancer survivor. She runs the Be Seen Foundation. She's on a mission to eradicate death by colorectal cancer through financial support for awareness, prevention, and treatment. She's been featured in the New York Times, the Katie Couric Media, Ms. Magazine. She's been on the Kelly Clarkson Show, ABC, NBC, all of it. And also she sings on Broadway. I mean, come on. I'm so happy that you are both here. So did you guys meet in a waiting room for chemo? How did you meet?
You want to take it, Dave?
Yeah, so we met with a mutual friend, basically. We were both individually going through, for me, colon cancer, for Marisa, rectal cancer, at a terrifying time in our 30s, where this was, prior to our diagnosis, really the furthest thing from our minds. And so we were each going through that kind of individually, with our own kind of communities around us, but looking for ways to engage with other people who had gone through, a similar situation. And honestly, both on our own, trying to find a way to turn something that was so shocking and could have been, a low point in our lives into something positive, and to try to channel those energies into turning it into something where we could make a difference and hopefully make it so that other people in the future didn't have to go through what we went through. And so our mutual friend, Rabina, connected us, and we had one conversation turned into 2, turned into some brainstorming. And, we've been trying to do our part here through what Marisa has really built with Be Seen, to make sure that we're raising awareness for young onset colorectal cancers and to save as many lives as we can.
Amen. Wow, I love that story. I asked because actually my dad's second wife. So my mom died of cancer. My dad also ended up dying of cancer like 10 years later. But my mom, when my mom was going through cancer, my future stepmom was at the bedside of her husband, who she was losing. And a person in the waiting room ended up introducing my stepmom to my dad.
Oh my gosh.
Waiting room romance blossomed. Isn't that crazy?
It's really crazy. And that whole bit about, closing a window, opening a door, vice versa, however we say it, right? Like that's literally the door opening for someone as they're facing that. Ugh.
Yeah. And it's really, I mean, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so the fact that you two took this life-threatening moment and decided to take it into a passion and part of your soul's mission to advocate for this is, always say when you get what you don't want or you don't get what you want, it can be a massive stressor, or it can be a window to your purpose and your mission. And so, I mean, dang guys, that's pretty amazing. So let's talk about it's when this airs, it's National Family Health Month. And the holidays are coming. And I wanted to run this by both of you because having lost both of my parents to cancer, and I have my 3 daughters in their mid-20s, right? How do you, what's the way to bring this up? Do you talk about it? All our families are going to be together. You don't want to be doom and gloom, but it's the same thing about having the conversation about, let me explain my estate to you. Not something pleasant, right? But if you've been on the other end of not knowing and going, gosh, I wish they would have just had the freaking courage to have the conversation. I'll start with you, Marisa. You have kids, how do you handle this kind of thing?
So life throws us a lot of curveballs, and many times they're not easy to receive and handle. Like you just described, Marnie, these conversations, they're tough ones. They're not the light, airy, hey, tell me what you want when you die kind of thing. However, we do know that for all of us, we're born and we pass away from our physical being on this earth, right? Depending upon what you believe and whatnot. And so in order for us to live in the best way we possibly can, our family history is laying out a map for us that has the ability to highlight potential potholes that could surface in our path forward. So if we think about your 3 daughters, or in my case, I have 3 sons, right? If we look at that, upon my diagnosis at 39 years old with late stage rectal cancer, all 3 of our boys will need to get screened much earlier than the current standard of care. So for everybody, regardless of symptoms or family history, at age 45, everyone should be getting a colonoscopy. Why, people might ask? No, it's not to raise extra funds for gastroenterologists around the world. It is because through the medical advancements of a colonoscopy in particular, you can have early detection as well as the preventative action taken. For example, if you have a polyp that's discovered in that colonoscopy, it's removed, it would be biopsied. It may or may not be precancerous, but in Dave and in my case, had we been led to those colonoscopies earlier in the multiple years that we were voicing very concerning symptoms to medical professionals, we would have been able to avoid our late stage diagnosis, our cancer battles, and the life-altering ramifications that we still experience today. I immediately went into menopause as a result of treatment, wasn't able to have any more children. Thankfully, I have 3 healthy boys. But my husband and I, we didn't know that we were done on that side.
Right.
Dave, your story is very inspiring in this case. I'd love for you to be able to share about your experiences around fertility and being married at earlier stages in life, experiencing cancer. The last part that I'll leave on, though, before Dave, you share on your part, is talking about our health history is so critically important. And when we're naturally gathered around the Thanksgiving table, it's a great time to check in not only with your children, but with their aunts, uncles, to talk about their grandparents' health and what they may or may not have experienced, because these are just clues that can help the younger generations, ourselves included, take the preventative steps that are available to us when we do have family health history that's perhaps atypical or unique.
And David, before you comment, I just want to clarify. So is the new recommendation for a colonoscopy 45? Because I thought it was 50.
That's
Since
They gave
correct.
us all
2021.
5 extra years of getting more colonoscopies. Yay!
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to talk to me about this because I wish they would go even younger, right? I was 39 at diagnosis. I had symptoms that preceded it for at least 5.5 years. Dave, you're in the same kind of space. So if we had waited until that 45-year-old marker, we're not 45 yet. We wouldn't have been caught by the system. In that case, we actually wouldn't be living to tell the story about it had we waited for the standard of care to catch us. So this is why knowing the symptoms and knowing your family health history, it changes the way those standards are applied in a medical setting for you. And we really want people to know about that, because this is not a lean back sort of illness to deal with, because it is entirely preventable if you follow these screening protocols and if you are tuned into the symptoms that would prompt earlier screening for yourself.
Okay, David, let's hear your story. And I've got like a million questions. So I love this
Yeah,
combo.
So I was, as Marissa said, I was 34, and honestly, the symptoms that I had, I probably had this for 4 years by the time that I was actually diagnosed, and so I was definitely more in the camp of, as you kind of alluded to at the top of it's not happening to me, right? Just like pretend that nothing could impact me, rub some dirt on it, like, just kind of stay in. I got tested for things. I was having the symptoms. We can maybe get more into that,
Yeah, for sure.
down the road. But my issue was I never got the right test. And so, for me, when I was diagnosed, again, 34, cancer was the furthest thing possible from my mind. I did not have kids yet. My wife and I had been married for 5 years. We were thinking about starting a family. And so this is one of the things that also, the rise in young onset colorectal cancer is so scary, because this is impacting people who are below that recommended age for the first screening. And also, the health system doesn't really know how to treat people who are 35 and not 75. For these kinds of cancers. And so I was incredibly lucky. I was treated at the Young Onset Colorectal Cancer Center at Dana-Farber up in Boston, which was the first of its kind center to focus on colorectal cancer happening in people under the age of 50. And so what that did for me was they told me that I needed to think about fertility, right? Because of where I was in my life. And so, and that was frankly so far from my mind as thoughts were swirling about what did chemo look like? What was my life look like? Was I going to have a life moving forward? Like, it was everything about that. It all happened so quickly, but they said, hey, you need to get this looked at, because the chemo that you're going to have, we can't guarantee that you'll be able to have kids after that. So I, took the steps to have genetic testing, to bank sperm, to make sure that, if the chemo left me infertile, that we would have an opportunity to start a family. And I know that so many people aren't that lucky and maybe are told about this after it's too late. Thankfully, I have a daughter who actually, I don't know when this is going to air, but turned 2 on October 8th, just yesterday. And so, and we were able to have Shira because of IVF, because of the steps that were taken before I started chemo. So in terms of the question that you had about, how do you talk to family? Look, I was an open book about this. I didn't really, which is not my normal personality, but I didn't really know another way to handle it. So with family, with friends, with the public, I was, I didn't shy away from the fact that I had cancer. And again, it gets back to this idea of how do you try to use this as a positive? And I know that if there were 2 or 3 people, I'm glad I didn't know people who went through this and had to go through the same thing. But if I did, I would have been more of an advocate for myself, knowing that those symptoms were similar to what I was feeling. And so maybe it wouldn't have taken 4 years, and maybe I would have been caught, at stage 1 or stage 2, as opposed to a later stage cancer. So for me, it was all about, like, if I can talk about this, and if one person, can be saved because, I've talked about my experience, that felt worth it to me. So that's kind of how I've approached it.
I think this is so important, and it's funny because as you age, you have these diagnostic things, and we're like, I have to go in for a mammogram, or I have to go, whatever it is, and there's just something about a colonoscopy, and someone was just telling me the other day about, like, oh, you can do the thing in a box and it's not invasive and da da da, and so I just wanted to add, like. And I was like, I don't know. It sounds like if it's going to be effective, it needs to be hard, painful, and horrible. So I should probably go the OG route. But is that true? Do you all have the latest and greatest around what the preventative screenings are now? And is there any way to avoid that prep?
I mean, look, there is. Let's talk about the prep for a second, though.
Okay.
Which David and I are both huge advocates in the power of the colonoscopy. Never thought I'd talk about poop and like be so excited about people
Girl, I
getting their
felt so
colonoscopies.
skinny though, right before.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of action,
Never felt better. Yeah.
That's right. Look, people will take the whatever lemon, cayenne pepper cleanse of the, flavor of the day. Yet when it comes to colonoscopies, people balk and they're like, oh, what is this? I can't, all the things. There's something about this procedure that I think, frankly, needs a lot of myth busting to be done about it. And second, when it's something that could lead to something that might be a little bit scary to find out on the other side, there are all sorts of fears and barriers that hold people back from getting that colonoscopy. There are different ways to prep. There are, different resources that can help you through the prep too. So some of what we're trying to share about with Be Seen is what are those questions to ask? What are the different resources that are available to help make it as straightforward as possible? I'll tell you, I have a number of moms in particular that come to me and they're like, it was the best nap of my life getting to go get that colonoscopy. I beg for when do I get to do my next one, right?
Well, I'm so ignorant. I didn't even, so I did it and I was so afraid of it and so afraid to ask. I really didn't even know it was going to happen. Like, I didn't know I was going to be knocked out cold. Like, I didn't know any of those things. And for me, I was just sort of like, that wasn't that bad. Like,
correct.
It was fine. Like, why has it got such bad PR?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like when you have babies, nobody talks about the mesh diapers and, the ice packs and all these different things for your peri-care that goes on. I think there's been too much talk about the challenge of a colonoscopy prep that is alarming and puts people off to it. But if you're really scared about the prep, talk to your doctor. There are a range of different ways to go about doing it so that you have a fantastic, clean prep and they can do what they need to in that colonoscopy. But for those that are listening that maybe have heard all of these myths, when you 24 hours before you get ready and make sure that, your GI system is clean and clear for the camera to be able to do what it needs to. It's a very quick procedure that typically people are under sedation for, and you come out of it and you can eat and you can go and move and you have a greater sense of confidence in terms of the way that you've taken care of yourself. And a lot of people clear that day out and then they have like an afternoon to hang out without people bothering you, including your children, if you need that time and space, right? So
I love that. That's such a great approach. So what about the other, the
Cologuard.
Non-invasive? Is that a thing that we should rely on, David?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would just say off of Marisa's point about the colonoscopy, look, I think that, yes, the prep is, it wouldn't be what you would do on a Saturday night if you had the choice, but it's not nearly as bad as people make it out to be. And sure, it's a great nap, but it's also the peace of mind that you get coming out of that, as Marisa said, that right? That whether you're clean, or whether, they say we found 4, precancerous polyps, and we took them out. They don't just identify them, they actually cut them out. And you then get, 5 years of knowing that you're in a good place and that you've done something that's going to protect your health. And that is truly priceless. Look, I think that there are a lot of reasons why people might not get a colonoscopy. I'd be clear, the colonoscopy is the gold standard because you can catch those precancerous polyps. It is the best test if you want the ultimate peace of mind. But, it's not just the prep, right? There are insurance won't always cover it for people under 45. Always advocate and make a push to make sure that they do. Don't just take no for an answer, especially if you have the symptoms or if you have family history. For some people, look, they can't, as Marisa said, you can take a day off to prep and to have the test. Some people can't take a day off of work to do that. There are people who live far from healthcare providers, whatever it might be. What we've always said is the colonoscopy is the gold standard, but the best test is the one that you're going to get.
Yeah,
the one that you're actually going to take. So there are a lot of other options. Cologuard is one, which is basically a stool-based or a poop-based test. They send you a box. You go to the bathroom and send back a sample. And that's been shown to be over 90% effective at catching late-stage cancer. Every once in a while, you'll get a false positive there. And the follow-up is always after a Cologuard test to go get a colonoscopy to find out exactly what it is. There's also been some really great innovations in blood tests. Guardant Health just came out with one this summer.
That's great.
It's still, it's been FDA approved. They're still trying to make it available to the masses. But I think we're taking huge strides here in making sure that we can make testing more accessible because, it's very scary, the rise that we've seen in young onset colorectal cancer in young people over the last few decades. By the year 2030, this is going to be the leading cause of cancer-related death in both men and women under the age of 50. So that's scary.
Whoa. What, and do they know why? Is it like environment? I mean, they don't know.
We don't know yet.
They don't. They don't. Diet, lifestyle, environmental
red
factors.
M&Ms.
Yeah.
I think it was the
Who
blue
knows?
ones, actually. No, it was the. It could be. They're studying the microbiome to figure out, what kind of changes there might impact it, but they don't know. And that's part of why Marisa and I are doing a lot of the advocacy that we're doing and some of the fundraising to find out exactly what it is that's causing this. The one thing that we do know is that if you catch it early, it is absolutely treatable and preventable. If you catch this at stage 1 or stage 2, you're going to be okay. Even better if you catch this in the precancerous stage, all the better. But what we're seeing is these, this rise in deaths because people are getting the disease before the recommended screening age. And so when they're finally being caught, they're getting it in late stages. So whatever you need to do to get a test, to know what your risk is. And also, as Marisa has talked about, know your family history, right? Like the minute that I was diagnosed, my younger brother, he's got his first colonoscopy at 30, right? And he's going to have them earlier and more frequently for the rest of his life. My daughter, she's 2, so she doesn't need one just yet, but she's going to have them earlier. And again, peace of mind. It's better to know.
It's so much better to know. So let's talk about prevention, because I know for you, Marisa, your symptoms came up and your doctors were saying, oh, you're just postpartum. Mm-hmm. And I know for you, David, you were, they was like, oh, you're anemic. So let's talk. What are some of the symptoms that can get confused to be diagnosed as other things or just ignored?
I mean, the trick is some of these symptoms, they are not uniquely aligned only to colon or rectal cancers, right? In my case, doctors were like, oh, do you have hemorrhoids? Yes. And, oh, well, that must be why you're bleeding. The challenge is I was bleeding, the bleeding intensified. I was bleeding over a period of 5 years, over 5 years. I had 2 more children during that time. By sharing my story, we're also, for listeners, sharing the symptoms you should be on the lookout for, right? I had an increased sense of urgency to go to the bathroom. Like I had times where I questioned, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to keep my poop inside of my body?
Right.
The
Yeah.
texture and size of my poop changed, started to become thinner, shaggier, almost looking like Cheetos. Um, in the end, the blood was filling the toilet bowl as if I was having a period out of my backside. But it started with just a little bit of blood on the toilet paper, which as women we're used to seeing.
Right.
However, it's not normal for that to happen out of your backside. And even a little bit of blood, even if you do have hemorrhoids present, is worth going and doing this additional testing. Look, you could do the Cologuard test very easily and ship and send it away and come back and have that information. But I would strongly encourage getting test-backed results to know what is going on inside of your body. And if it continues to persist, continue to advocate, because wishing won't make it go away. And
Or
every time
waiting.
I would go, or waiting, or disregarding that it wasn't
Yeah.
there, right? Because it's not comfortable, both physically to experience, but even more emotionally and mentally to have to communicate and address these things that really are concerning that you wish never were happening. So making sure that your voice is heard, not only heard, but responded to in the doctor's office is so critically important, because often doctors will tell you, oh, yes, this is normal, right? Your body's not going to be the same after you've had children. Those things are true, but you can also have something else that's really serious that's going on. You know, people don't have a baby or have rectal cancer. You can have both. And knowing conclusively what's going on is really important. The same, like in terms of family history, I have a younger sister and a younger brother. My sister immediately went in. We did genetic testing even previous to that. We do not have genetic predispositioning that runs in our family for the genes that we know are associated with this as of today, right? There's always technology and breakthroughs in terms of our understanding of DNA and our genetics. However, she did have a polyp that was discovered at age 36 that was confirmed precancerous. She now, during my time since my cancer diagnosis, she's already had her 3-year checkup on that, in which they found another polyp, right? She didn't have any symptoms, super healthy, no genetic predispositioning. And just because she stayed up on that routine surveillance, she will be able to avoid this in her lifetime. But it's concerning and hard and difficult, but going and finding out that information and giving voice to it, running it all the way down is so, so important.
Well, the mental anguish, like going through what you went through of the monologue of your, like, oh, that's weird. Telling your partner, it's like that to me is like, that's hell.
It is.
The colonoscopy is like, a day at the park, right? The mental anguish of like questioning and self-doubt and waiting to see if something goes away. So this is like so empowering. David, what about, sorry.
I was just going to say, like, Dave's exactly right. The number of people who have taken the Be Seen Pledge, which is a commitment to yourself to know the symptoms and to make sure that you are screened appropriately. We have a goal of reaching 100,000 people for doing just that. And the number of people who have come out of their colonoscopy and shared their story back with us, the peace that they feel, the confidence, the calmness is, in Dave's words, like it's priceless. And so we would really encourage listeners to go visit our website at beseen.care. And we have the symptoms laid out there, some guidance on what to say, how to talk about it. And we would love to hear your story, whether it's, frustrating or it's one of success, just to be able to inspire other people. But it is a sense of calm like no other after going through it and just questioning, oh my goodness, what are they going to potentially find?
Yeah, for sure. David, is there anything you wanted to add to the old symptom combo?
No, I mean, mine were pretty similar to Marissa's. I had anemia, which presented itself as just like really extreme fatigue. So I would I played sports growing up. I was pretty active, even, post college as I kind of transitioned into the real world. But it would get to a point where like I'd go up a flight of stairs and I would just be like kind of keeled over, just like totally winded,
Oh my God, that's not
which
right
had
at
never happened
34.
before.
Yeah.
Not at all. And so, I fainted twice. I went in and saw doctors, right? I mean, this is part of it. They thought that they were what they called vasovagal events.
Oh yeah.
I had this really extreme stomach pain, where it would like build and build and build. It felt like somebody was almost like blowing up a balloon in my stomach. So the pressure would build. And then it was like somebody would just like release a valve and it would dissipate and it would go away. And so, when I would feel this extreme pain, I would go in and I got tested for bacteria. H. pylori was something that I got tested for. So I went in and I got like a lot of tests, honestly. I just always say I never had the right test. And so what happened with me where I was diagnosed was the pain built and just didn't dissipate one time. And I was literally, I never miss a day of work. And I was laying face down on my couch and like couldn't physically get up to like go to work. And my
Ugh.
wife's like, "You're being an idiot. Like, go see the doctor." So we went to the ER.
Why are us
I
wives
thought I had an
always telling our
ulcer.
husbands to go to the doctor?
I know. I'll
Go to the doctor.
I'll be right.
Okay.
I'll be right one of these times, I'm sure. But I went in and I thought I had an ulcer. I thought I had an appendix that was about to burst. And when I went in to get to the first thing they did was they took a blood test and they said, do you know you're anemic? And I said, no. And they said, well, you are. And it just, then they did a CT scan. And I sat and waited for a long time to get the results for a CT scan. And at that point, I started to think like something's not quite right here. And they found a baseball-sized tumor basically in my colon. And that's what they said I was 99% occluded, blocked. So that was the reason for all of this. I threw up a lot, especially in the mornings. And it was basically because there was no place for the food to go, right? Like I couldn't pass it through. So it just kind of came back up. And so, a big piece of why I think what we're doing is so important is yes, to educate, everybody out there who might have these symptoms, but
Yeah.
also doctors and medical professionals, because I truly, I do not blame my primary care physician at all for not diagnosing this. I think he just didn't know. In the same way, I always think like when I went in when I was a kid, every doctor's office had that food pyramid, right? It was just like it was
Right. Yeah.
everywhere, and whether it's right or wrong, it was ubiquitous, and you'd see it. If there was a similar poster that said, colon cancer on the rise, keep an eye out for these 4 symptoms, I'd be like, oh, that's I have all of those. Like maybe I should flag that, and he would have known too. And so I think we're not doing a good enough job of educating medical professionals too of what to keep an eye out for so that they can be advocates for us as well. And that's a big piece of what we're looking to do here.
I think it's so pertinent. It's funny, I was talking to another physician on this show who's an OBGYN, and she was talking about issues related to menopause. And she was basically like, if you're an OBGYN, they spend like 5 minutes talking about menopause and like, the whole rest of your time talking about having babies and vaginas, right? And what I'm hearing you say is they're like, medical school and medical training is like this. And so they're the whoever it is sort of deciding, well, get really good at this and be okay at that and then just refer it out. But it sounds like our internists and our general practitioners, like we have to be the advocates and be educated about these things because, they're human, right? They're not a supercomputer, so they can only know what they know. So getting educated about all of these health risks and symptoms are our responsibility.
That's absolutely right.
It's so true. And like as a mom, a new mom, going through the healthcare system, right? You're in with your OB all the time. You're talking about the nitty gritty, sorts of things leading up to pregnancy and delivery, and certainly after, in order to get cleared. And if only our frontline physicians, OBs included,
Yep.
knew that there is such a rise in young people.
Yeah.
To the statistics that Dave shared about 2030 and this being the leading cancer-related killer of people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, already today, it's number one for guys. And by that point, it will be for women. And so it's why this awareness and self-advocacy is so important, not just for us, for ourselves, but also for the physicians so that they're able to, identify and link some of these concerning symptoms with the appropriate tests in order for people to conclusively know what is or isn't going on in their bodies.
Yeah. Be brave. Get over yourselves. Go get a damn colonoscopy.
That's right.
Like we overthink things. That's not the one to overthink.
Well, here's the other interesting fact, right? So they lowered the standard of care from age 50 to 45 recently. And they're continually evaluating, what the ROI is on the age for screening, right? And if it will or won't change in the future. But today, with that standard of care at 45 years old and up, we only have 60% of that eligible population actually getting this done. So it's leaving quite a wide gap for people going in asymptomatic, just standard of care, happy birthday, you're 45, go get that colonoscopy. And so, really important that people take it seriously and use these new standards of care to their benefit.
Yeah, and know about it. I didn't even know about it. David, anything you want to add before we wrap up our conversation today?
No, I mean, look, I really think, first of all, Marnie, thank you so much for giving us the platform, right? I mean, what we're trying to do here is to reach as many people as possible, especially young people. And I still do consider myself a young person.
I do too, just so you know.
To get the word out to talk about the symptoms, to talk about treatment, to give people the information. Because it really does help save lives. That's why Marisa and I started this, and it's why we're doing everything that we can to keep driving awareness for this issue.
Yeah, and so if you're a parent and you have kids in their 20s or 30s, here's a tip from me to you. Don't be the annoying parent that just copies the link to this podcast, sends it in a text, because your kids are never going to open it and they're never going to read it. So get some ovaries and have the conversation and be like, hey, this is really different from when I was your age. And we all grew up, you're not supposed to smoke cigarettes, right? Like, what if this is the new cigarettes, right? Like, it'll be like the next generation's duh. But for our kids that are in their 20s and 30s, this is something that is new, and that as a parent, we need to educate our kids. And so talk to them about it and tell them about the BeSeen.care initiative. Get screened, explain to your young children that are adults what a gastroenterologist is, because most of them having kids in this, they're just thinking like colonoscopy is what you do and you're like almost ready to die. And, they're more worried about, preventing pregnancy and their skin and, just any kind of thing like that. And so I think that as parents, I'm definitely going to have this conversation with my young people and their boyfriends and everyone else I know. So make sure that you check all of this out, ladies and gentlemen who are listening. You want to go to www.beseen.care. All this will be in the show notes. And Marisa, I saw you have a TEDx talk coming up too.
Yes, we're so excited to be supported by the TED organization and get to share this story with more people. So, yes, we'll be in Manhattan Beach at the beginning of November, kicking off Know Your Family Health History Month. And for all those people who, have parents out there that you find yourself either in that sandwich generation or in a different space, this is your chance to parent your parents. How often do we get to say that? Make sure that they're going in and that you're asking those questions of them and sharing with your friends too, to make sure that they're taking care of themselves and their family. So, Marnie, we can't thank you enough. Thank you for having us here.
I'm so happy to be here. You guys need to create that like multi-generational, really funny but profound colorectal cancer meme that goes viral, and everyone just, it's like the way you say, get your ass in the doctor's office, literally, in a way that we're all listening. So thank you. This has been so informative and so educative. And I'm so glad that you guys decided to make this your mission, because I know you're saving so many lives. So I'm sorry you had to suffer so that you could help so many other people.
Hey, we're here trying to make rivers of lemonade out of the lemons we were dealt. So thank you for helping us on this mission, and and thanks to the whole audience for listening in and doing your part too. It takes all of us.
I love it. The world's best poop podcast ever. Ladies and gents, the name of the show is Life Check Yourself. Okay, well, this is just get your ass to the doctor. Go do it. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Listen, if you're feeling stuck, I want you to know you're not alone, and you don't have to settle for it. I've created a free quiz to help you pinpoint what's draining your energy and exactly how you can fix it. So head over to decodeyourdestinyquiz.com and take the 60-second quiz right now. That's decodeyourdestinyquiz.com. And if you're ready to dive deeper, you can book a free no-obligation consultation at marnibatista.com/private coaching. That's Marni, M-A-R-N-I, Batista, B-A-T-T-I-S, as in Sam, T-A.com/private coaching, all one word. Let's take the first step to creating a life you love on your terms. I'm Marni, and I'll see you next time.